To start this hearing chaired by Illinois State Representative Mary Flowers, Subcommittee on Social and Economic Disparities. We're here at the Austin Town Hall, hosted by Dr. Felice Binion of the Westside Ministers Coalition, October the 4th, 2019. We can start out with a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus, God, we're just thanking you, God. God, we're just asking that you use us as change agents, God, standing in a gap for those who cannot stand in the gap for themselves. And God, we just will be so ever grateful for you, Father God, and your anointing that destroys the yokes. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Now we have a roll call, and I would like to welcome everyone out here today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules. And though it might seem, but this is a powerhouse, and we're standing in the gap for a whole lot of people. And I am so excited about that. Amen. Amen. So now we will have roll call.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I am chair of the Social and Economic Disparities Committee, and the committee will come to order. And the members are Representative Latoya Greenwood, and the other members are Representative Marcus Evans, Representative LaShawn Ford, Representative Tom Morrison, Representative Delia Rames, Representative Sam Yingling, Representative Lamont Robinson, Senator Peters, and Senator Belt. And we are also joined by another member of the PTEL committee, none other than your senator, Senator Harmon. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Graves? You going to do the guest testimonies, the list?
Oh, no, you can MC it.
Okay, thank you.
MC the whole thing and then
Okay, all righty. Well, I would now like to have Alderman Teleferro to stand up. He's the alderman here in this ward. We'd like to thank him. Get the mic and introduce yourself and say what you're doing in the community.
Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing this evening? Well, thank you. Let me first thank everyone for coming out this evening. Our summer weather is gone. It's getting a little colder. And sometimes when it gets colder, folks tend to want to stay in. But let me thank you so much for coming out this evening to hear discussion on things that really and truly impact our community. Dr. Binion, again, thank you so much for hosting this. And Representative Flowers, thank you so much for chairing this much-needed committee, and also with the members and Senator Harmon, as well as Representative Ford. If you look at throughout this city, in our state as well, we have to continue to fight for equity and justice. And I believe when we come together as a community, when we come together as a body, we make that fight much, much stronger. So I want to thank all of you for tonight, for coming out to have a voice in that fight, for having participation in that fight. And Representative Flowers, thank you so much for your leadership in that fight. Thank you, Dr. Binion.
Thank you. And now we will have Rep. LaShawn Ford to stand up. He is a part of this task force.
Thank you so much, Reverend Binion. And I just want to let everyone know that this committee wasn't supposed to be, because when it got started, this committee was not even thought of to be. But Leader Flowers said, oh no, we have to have a committee that deals with what's going on in our community. And she said, literally, she said, well, I don't know a lot about property taxes, but ain't nobody going to do anything in this process without making sure that we deal with equity for black and brown communities that's been left out. And so that's why we're here today. When we elect good people that stand up for our communities. This is what we get. We have an opportunity to voice our opinions. And thank you, Representative Flowers, for your 30-some years of service and good leadership. I got to tell you, I've been in Springfield for 13 years, and many of the things that I know how to get around is because of Leader Flowers. And I should say that Leader Flowers also has a beautiful granddaughter here, Madison. Madison, you want to give a wave?
And now we'll have Senator Don Harmon.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I am a member of the Property Tax Relief Task Force, so ably chaired by Representative Mary Flowers, but I am not a member of this subcommittee. But when Representative Flowers and Dr. Binion decided to have it here in my Senate district, I wanted to be sure to be here to welcome you and to thank you for coming out to hear from my constituents, from Alderman Taliaferro's constituents, from Representative Ford's constituents directly about this incredibly pressing issue. No matter where I go in my district, and my district runs from the west side of the city through my hometown of Oak Park, all the way out into the DuPage County suburbs, the common denominator is the property taxes are too high and they have no relationship to your ability to pay. And so while I know we need to work on this was in part a companion to the Fair Tax Initiative to amend our Constitution to allow us to adopt a fair income tax where people with higher incomes pay higher rates and lower incomes pay lower rates. And I think these two together is the beginning of a real honest discussion about how to reduce our property tax burden, raise the income taxes on people who can most afford it, and start moving the burden of paying for our public schools in particular to the income tax, and to make sure that it's done in a fair way, echoing the words of my colleagues who have already spoken about the need for equity and fairness in this whole process. So I'm eager for the report of the subcommittee, and thank you for coming to the district.
Awesome. Okay. And now I would just, if each panelist, if you could just say your name and who you are quickly for the camera.
Reeve Fellows, I'm the co-founder of the National Black Agenda Consortium and part of the Property Tax Relief Task Force with State Rep Mary Flowers and working with Brother Travis, the tax doctor.
Hi, I'm Lakia Colquitt. I am the Chief Operating Officer for Brothers Keepers, and I am also on the board of the Cook County Black Chamber.
My name is Clifton Graham. I'm CEO of my own company, Graham Financial Mall. I'm also testimony of my high taxes and former president of NAACP of South Suburban Region.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. My name is Melody Lewis. I'm from the Austin Chamber of Commerce. Our concern is businesses that are in trouble with the property tax.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is William Moore. I'm an attorney, and I work with the Westside Ministers Coalition, trying to deal with this issue. So we'll talk more.
My name is Anthony Travis, better known as the Tax Doctor, and I'm also a public servant out of Proviso School Board. I've been on the board since 1991, and I've been elected 4 times to a 6-year term. And folks, our schools are in trouble.
I am Professor LaShondra Graves, and I'm also known as the Apartment Lady. I'm the founder of Apartment and Housing Rentals Foundation and the founder and CEO of Takes a Village One, the real estate development firm today. That's public.
Awesome. Okay, next, since we've done that, we're going to go into the guest testimonials. But before then, I would just like to give a brief synopsis of, and I wanted to thank Governor Pritzker, who will be seeing this personally today, for even having this task force. And it is going to, with the short-term and long-term relief, it's going to make a difference in someone having a roof over their head or being homeless. And so that's just where it's at. It's critical, crucial. I thank God for the tax doctor, but we have an attorney that I've been working with the coalition for years, and he has suggested some things he's going to speak on later on, but I'm going to get out the way. But I just needed for you guys to see my tax bill before we go any further. My taxes for 6 months was $9,586.56 for a house that was $98,000. The first part of the year, my tax bill was $5,000 and something dollars. I just bought the home. I didn't know, I had no idea that I was paying for 2 school districts, and I'm paying $5,000 and some dollars a year for one, and $2,000 and some dollars a year for the other one. And I don't even have a child to go to school. See, so I'm very, this is touched, you know how we say, touched by the fears of your infirmities? Well, I'm touched. And when I got this bill, I was speechless. And they hide it when you buy your property, because they tell you that the taxes are low, and they do everything they can until you get the property. And then you find out, you know, when you go in, they say, oh, well, you have to be in the house a year. But then when you go in, all of these things starts to pop up. So this affects all of us. And you know, the Westside Ministers Coalition has always been an organization who tried to advocate for those who cannot advocate for themselves, as well as we're for the people. But I'm the people. You know, I'm the people. First time buying a home, and I got a $10,000 tax bill for 6 months. So if nobody else is in this room, I'm very elated that you all are here today, and that, Governor, you're here, and the other 88 state reps, to hear my story and my plea, because I need help, period. I need help. And the people that are here that make the decisions are the ones that can help me and others who are like me. So I thank you all for coming today. I thank you, Senator Mary Flowers. I mean, I'm a state rep. I'm speaking it in Jesus' name. But I thank you. Yes, Jesus. You know, because your labor is not in vain. And when you advocate for the poor and those who don't have a voice, and I have to say this, a lot of them don't even know what a legislative hearing is. But it's okay, but we know. And we're going to stand in the gap, and we're going to advocate, and we're going to take buses, and we're going to do all the things that we need to do to get this changed, short term and as well as long term. So thank you so much.
And now we're going to have an address from State Representative Mary Flowers, which is the chair for Governor Pritzker's Tax Relief Task Force. She's the chair for the task force, and she's also the chair for the subcommittee, Social and Economic Disparities.
First of all, I want to take this opportunity to thank each and every last one of you for coming out tonight. And I really want to thank everybody at this table, because these people have been working the heck out of me for the last couple months. But I'm very grateful, very, very grateful, because the governor signed this important piece of legislation. And I just need for everyone to know that this is an official hearing. It's official. And we have someone here that's taking notes from the Illinois Department of Revenue. And if you all knew the part that the Department of Revenue played in this property tax situation, you would understand the reason why he's here. But this is the law. This is not what's going to be. This is what it is. Section 1-2, the Property Tax Relief Task Force, is created to utilize a racial and economic quality lens to identify the causes of increasingly burdened property taxes across Illinois, to review best practices in public policy strategies, and to make recommendations to assist in the development of administrative, electoral, legislative changes, and to create short-terms and long-term property tax relief for homeowners. That's what the law is. And we're here to comply with the law. We're here tonight to hear your testimony so we can understand what it is. Now, most of us read The Tax Divide. It was an excellent article that was put out by the Chicago Tribune as well as ProPublic newspaper. That article explained what some of the burdensome and the racial inequalities that's going on in this state. It said that we were subsidizing the poor working community. We were subsidizing the wealthy. We, the poor, the working, were subsidizing the wealthy. They were getting tax benefits that we could not get, and theirs was greater than ours. So if you can imagine, our low income was supporting the wealthy. The low income was, so when they were getting those tax breaks, when the wealthy was getting those tax breaks, they had to fill in the gap with somebody and someone. And so it was our property. And now I understand that the North Side is going through that experience now. That doesn't make it right because it happened to us. So we need to look at this through racial and equality, equity. We have to find equity. There has to be a fair tax that's fair to everyone. No senior citizen should have to lose their home because they cannot afford their property tax. Quite frankly, if you read the Constitution and if you read the law that's governing property taxes, it's unconstitutional to charge us different prices. Right. It's supposed to be a particular rate for everyone across the board, and it's really based on your income. So, but we have to know this, we have to hear it, we have to articulate, we have to make sure that we are hearing from you so we can make sure that we correct it. The policies that we make in Springfield, it's govern your lives. So you should be here and have your input on what you would like to see as far as a change here in the state of Illinois, because I promise you a change is going to come. But let me just say this about Representative Ford, because he told the story, but he didn't tell the whole story. So we had this vote. We were supposed to have a vote. But I just told them, nope, it's not going to be a vote because this is the way it's going to be, because I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was tired of seeing my community being run down. And I know how it used to be. And so when you think about the amount of wealth that has been taken out of our community and given to someone else, it's just no wonder we don't have the business. It's no wonder that our property is boarded up. It's no wonder that we can't get loans and different things to pass on to our community as far as our property is concerned. And so I am determined to restore, and replace. I'm not going to try to give us the things that we used to have, but I do know that what we used to have, and we used to own property. We used to take care of our property. But when the property got so high that we couldn't afford it, some of us just had to walk away. Who walk away from something that they raised their family and their children? So without any further ado, again, I want to thank Representative Ford, because I told him, I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about property tax. Ask me about health care, I got you. I got you. But ask me about property taxes, but I had to pray on it. I said, because I know people are depending on me. And I want to say that this young man trusted me. And I told him, I don't know anything about it, but I'm going to do something about it. So thank you, Representative Ford, for trusting me. Thank you. And now I'm going to turn it back over to the MC.
Okay. Okay. We getting ready to do new business? Or we getting ready to do testimonies?
to do the guest testimonies.
Okay. So we will start with the guest testimonies. We have Reven Fellows.
Yes. Good evening. Real quick, I'm going to have to give 400 years of pain in 3 minutes. This is the anniversary, 400 years of us being captive and brought here and enslaved, not as slaves. So this is very historical and very significant. I want to thank our other colleagues, Brother Obie Woodlaw here, and Sister Phyllis Logan, and Glenda Fulton, and they're part of our team, and then also Sister Justina Winfrey out here. She's been championing this cause for a while over here on the West Side. But I'm going to try to give us a track record of how we got here. And so the largest concentration of black people in the United States reside on the west and south side of Cook County. That should be DuSable County, Illinois. But we're the largest concentration of people, and they're sucking all of our resources out. So no more west side, south side, we all broken outside. With that being said, I want to go to Trey Patrol. They started with the 14 Communities program, Quality of Life, and the Austin community just did y'all first Quality of Life, I'm understanding. It's called Austin Coming Together. This is your new program. But so before that, they did 14 communities with the Quality of Life, and they listed MacArthur Foundation. They supplied money to go around and get our intellectual capital and put the Quality of Life plan, and after 20 years, foreclosure, schools, and we lost everything, and y'all still trust in that MacArthur Foundation research. We appreciate the money, but the outcome is not coming. And so listen, MacArthur Foundation did that, and so they came up later on with the Metropolis 2020 plan. That's the 20-year plan for Chicago, where we are right now. And so if you're not in these documents I'm talking about and haven't had the conversation and looked at them, each one of these have a DVD in the back. So we've been sitting, and they've been making plans without us. So most of these plans I'm talking about had no inclusion of black people to see the future. And so now they didn't stop there. They went into the 2030 plan, which is transportation. I'm trying to lay the groundwork for the tax doctor, that you know that we're not just up here playing. It's not a dog and pony show. We guessing. We're looking at facts, documentation with some of our greatest minds to come up with a solution to save black people. Then they came up with the 2040 plans. I don't know if y'all missed that one too. While we were sleeping and gambling and partying, we missed it. Then they came up with the flower plan. When you see all these new phrases, Chicago's the import of the world. This is a thing, has a DVD. So all the flowers that cost billions of dollars that Congressman Danny Davis and all had to protest on Metro was already in the plan, and all the black contractors missed the plan. So then they didn't get through with that. They came up with the 2046 plan. And so while we were sleeping, we missed that. And then they have the 2021 plan, which is dealt with Pilsen and all that. But then last week ago, they came back with a 2050 plan. So I'm just saying, if we don't have this information, we miss it. We kind of put ourselves in a real deep hole. And so what we're doing, and I thank State Rep Mary Flowers for what she commitment is, that we're going to dig us out a hole, but we're not going to dig out without having facts, so we can't repeat the same ignorance. We stand to be the only race of people in America to leave our children's children dead. And that's a shame before God. So in wrapping up, I also say there's another plan that y'all miss, the Berman plan, the 100-year plan. So all that you see going up and down Lakeshore Drive, the Obama Library, Frank Lloyd Wright, it was a 100-year plan for the green going on. So we need to apologize to our children for turning our head and not giving them a future. So I want to thank y'all for everything, for what we're doing, but we are under the gun. We have to make a real radical change for our children, and we have to be willing to die, cry, and don't go nowhere. Thank you and bless you.
Thank you. Next we have the tax doctor, Anthony Travis.
Thank you. As I sit here, listen to, I call him Professor Raven, I want you to understand that this did not happen overnight, and it's not going to get fixed overnight. But some things are going to happen in the veto session that is serious to us, to our survival. There are some things you're going to have a constitutional amendment to, and then there are some things that the General Assembly is going to have to vote on and pass. In California, they have what you call Proposition 13. I had a chance to study Proposition 13. And Proposition 13 protects taxpayers, the framework of it. Now, Proposition 13 does have its detractors. And Governor Brown, when he got elected, under the umbrella of Proposition 13, he wasn't so gung-ho on Proposition 13. But after he left office, he became a champion of Proposition 13. What makes Proposition so relevant to us, it takes the assessor out of the equation. We have 102 counties in this state. Cook County is an island unto itself, and that needs to change. All 102 counties should be up under the same jurisdiction of IDOR. And then IDOR have to be given some teeth by the law, because our brothers and sisters down in Cole County have some of the same issues we have in Cook County. And just imagine going 16 years without your commercial and industrial properties being assessed. 16 years. And the difference between Cole County is that it's rural, farm. And up here, we have skyscrapers and businesses and industry. But the number one reason why folks are leaving our state is property taxes. Crime is number 2, jobs are number 3. And so what we're saying, and I do have a plan called the 2022 plan, where we talk about the fact that we got 7,000 units of government in this state. More units of government than any state in the United States of America. Number 2, we got 856 school districts, which need to be brought down to 102 unified K-12. Now, in my research, I was listening to Professor Ann Lucen, who is a professor at John Marshall Law School. As I was listening to her interview, she said we had 11,000 school districts. Well, I said, what? So I did my research. Come to find out, in 1940, we had 12,000 school districts. 12,000. From 12,000, it came down to 856. But the problem with the 856, we're wasting $1 billion a year on administrative costs. Then, about 3 weeks ago, we done found out we got 9,000 administrators at $100,000 each and a 1.4 million pension plan. And when you talk about the tax divide, we lost $2.5 billion that was taken away from our community because our property was overvalued, overassessed, and overtaxed. And then comes CMAP, Metropolitan Planning Commission. They put out a story that because of racism, segregation, we lost $4 billion. And part of that $4 billion could have went to support our schools. So when our state rep talk about the law that give her and her fellow colleagues the teeth to deal with these issues, it's upon us as citizens, public officials, to work together to bring an end to the madness. Now, we must get the schools off the property tax system. We must have one statewide budget for education like they did in California and like they did in Hawaii. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Now we'll have Professor Lysandra Graves, the apartment lady.
Hello, everyone. I am known as the apartment lady because I'm the founder of Apartment Housing Rental Foundation. Apartment Housing Rental Foundation clients, we have a second chance rental and eviction prevention program. So I'm pretty much just going to say some numbers, and it's going to shock you. 2.3 million people have been taken to eviction court in 2016. 900,000 people were evicted in 2016. So these numbers mean this. When you get taken into an eviction court, you're pretty much a high-risk renter. You're considered a high-risk renter. So even if they don't get the eviction, your records, public records, they're sold to three different companies, and those companies sell your public records to people that do eviction checks, landlords, managers, things of that nature. And so when they buy your public record, they're looking for evictions, whether you've been taken to court or not. What does this have to do with property taxes? When your rent, if the landlord who owns the house or the building, property taxes is high, then that determines your rent. That determines market rent. So if you're going to hear a testimony of someone who has a house that's $230,000, but it's taxed, the rate, they pay $14,000 a year for taxes. So then I broke that number down. I said, wow, if this is a 3-bedroom house, and I'm just saying 3-bedroom just to give you a picture. If this is a 3-bedroom house and their tax bill is $14,000 a year, then that means that's $1,167 a month. So for a 3-bedroom house like that, they can only afford to rent that house at $1,800 or more. Because what? They have their insurance they have to maintain because they can't rent it to you without insurance. They have their taxes, $1,167. So we're going to say that's $1,300 right there. And then they have to be able to maintain the house because if something happens, so they need about $400 or $500 just for maintenance and water bills because renters don't pay water bills. And the water bills is going up with the taxes. So that raises market rent. What we call the disenfranchised, and the renters are no longer disenfranchised because the 2008 housing market pretty much made the rental market the highest market. That's higher than homeowners at this point. But the renters, that rental industry, we get that price. We get our market rent being raised. So now a 3-bedroom house is $1,800 for rent. If you don't have Section 8, you can't afford it on minimum wage, even if you have a 2-parent home. You can't afford $1,800 for rent. And not only can you not afford $1,800 for rent, you will never be able to buy, because $1,800, even in a two-family home, and you're making minimum wage, you're bringing in $4,000 after taxes, the income taxes and so forth. Okay? This is a problem. This is a problem. And every time they raise the taxes, more people get evicted. You know why? Because they can't, because they're going to get their rent hiked up as soon as their lease is over. Because the landlord is not going to pay for you to stay there. They're not going to absorb the high property taxes. This is a problem. So when I look around this room and I'm asking, okay, over in the suburbs, we have about 100 people here. Why don't we have so many people here on the west side of Chicago? And I was told, well, they're renters. Renters don't think property taxes have anything to do with you, but yes, they do. If you want your rent to go down, then you better be in these forums or legislative hearings or town hall meetings. This is a legislative hearing, but you better be at every meeting, every hearing if you want your rent to go down. Because Illinois has came up with a term called double up living. Yes. That's trying to make it a norm for people to live with each other. That's what double up living went, two family households. Now I know that the seniors and the people that is living in their houses, owner-occupied houses, they're facing it too. They're having a hard time with these property taxes, but I can only speak for my renters, okay? Yes. Oh, that's a minute. I'm going to get into this, you guys. Because I'm very passionate about this. If you only knew. But the only way we can make a change is if you guys come out. Martin Luther King marched. Harold Washington brought the people out. The time is now. The time is now for your voices to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we have Clifton Graham.
Hello, neighbors. My name is Clifton Graham. I'm from Country Club Hills area, and I said, well, I'm doing all this traveling to discussing about these property taxes, so everywhere I'm going, I'm trying to go. I said, well, how can I relate to us, the community out here? Well, I worked for about 6-7 years at Hostess Plant over in Schiller Park, and so that's my relationship. And I remember a young man, because I was a manager, and he bought a home in Austin community. And he was very proud, and he was a minister, matter of fact. He was a young minister. And he was very proud of him purchasing that home, no matter how the plate was being portrayed in the cafeteria and everywhere else. And I always respected him because he's a homeowner. And I had been a homeowner for quite a while. And now that I'm sitting here, and I saw his community then, and now I see my community in the same predicament, on the verge of losing my home, losing my neighbors, losing my businesses in the community, losing my friends. And my testimony is going to change every day, because the effect is still happening right now. Even though we got the Cook County assessor out of office, the systematic system to eliminate us, to gentrify our community and transfer it into whatever wealth they want it to be, is still in the program. When we talk about the tax divide, where the black community is being overtaxed and the north side is being undertaxed, it's still happening right now. And so even though the transition has changed, and they're over there, now they're saying, okay, we elected someone to come into our community and say they're going to do something for us. and you realize it's just the same story. And we have to do for ourselves, and that's why I'm here telling to you and trying to relate to you that we need to appeal our taxes, like I've been appealing my taxes for almost 20 years. But I've still seen my taxes go from $7,000 to $14,000. I have seen the money shift from where they lower mine and raise my neighbors. I have ran for office. I have been on the board of Homeowners Association. I have done possibly everything I can. Today, this weekend is my 30th anniversary of with my wife. And I'm here because I know that I'm trying to save my home for my kids. You know, that's my goal. If I can get these taxes down through this board, which we can, by working every day and stifling this extreme divestment and I would say so personal that I can't even describe how hardening it is for 20 years to purchase a home for, like she told you all, for $235,000. And today, 20 years later, it's probably worth less. But I paid more taxes than I paid toward my home. And then to find out, the system is set up for me to lose. You know, they go to the north side just recently, and you said that's the problem. So I read today, and it really hit home, and I'll be real quick. They went over there to Nutria area where Winnetka and all the rich areas, and they finally put the tax on them that they deserve. But they doubled their taxes, so there's a 53% assessed value increase. Some of them got a 95% tax increase. And I said, now the tax shift is coming. But then I see the assessor comes, and he gives them a flood break. Now, these people who have $4 million, $3 million homes are now getting their value assessed $1 million less because they decided to live off the lake and didn't expect water to be in their basement. And so this is a continued process of taking care of the rich and using us, because I'm continuing to pay the same amount, that $14,000. I ask you to tell your neighbors, tell your friends to listen, to come to these hearings all over the state, wherever we may be at, and get ready to, if you don't appeal, you won't get anything. And even though I appeal and I don't get anything, you won't be in the game to get anything. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. I hate to have to, which I have done, move my real estate businesses to the Indiana, because I could pay $2,000 for a 3-flat where I go live in the south suburbs and I got to pay $15,000. I ain't stupid, you know what I'm saying? Okay, but I believe, I love my community, and I know the resources that's in our community can grow tremendously if we get a fair shake. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Glenda Fulton.
Thanks. Good evening, family. And I'm kind of going to echo off of all of my colleagues that sat up there, and thank you to Mary Flowers for this task force. I first want to sentiment what Sister said here, because I'm a renter, but I have buyers in my family, so we all got to be conscious of that. Number one, what I need to share with you is get on that phone call and blow it off the hook. Right. That means aldermen, state rep, and whoever else, find out who the housing committee folks and whoever else, what's going on, what has happened in my community, how do I get in touch with you? I don't want to wait and go to Springfield with the bus. I say let's go now to LaShawn's office, Mary's office, and anybody else's office we got to go to. Because as she said, I live in a high-rise where the rent for the one-bedroom in 2 years ago was $808. Family today is $1,031. I was telling Anthony, I say, are they losing their mind? Yes, we're paying school taxes, whether we know it or not. And you have no children in the public school. I don't mind paying the tax, but don't overtax me, or don't carry the rent up 1 year when Social Security didn't give anything back to the seniors. They still went up on the rent. So the time is now, family, like she said, to do what we need to do to be involved. You got to call somebody and tell somebody, or you got to go get sister and big mama, and let's go to Mary's office, or let's go to LaShawn's office. Springfield ain't the only place we can go. And you can call, and those of you who love to write, I take 2 paragraphs. If you can't CAD, I'll CAD and read it for you. Make sure you got your name and phone number on it, and that's it for Glenda. But it's all about us. It's not about one, it's about all.
Thank you. Now we have Lakia Colquitt.
Okay, yes, close enough. Okay, so the last time they had me at the legislative hearing, I didn't write down what I was going to say, and I took a left turn. And I started talking about Caucasians in America. So today, I've written down something that'll take about 30 seconds to discuss. I was one of the fortunate individuals, and I was able to purchase my first home at the age of 20. By the age of 27, I was losing that house. They had doubled my taxes in a poverty-stricken area. So the house value wasn't going up, it was increasingly going down, but my taxes doubled. I was one of the people who went into foreclosure, but I was fortunate enough to sell my house before they took it. All right. And so I'm just here to say, finally, we have an opportunity in America to become educated. We have the opportunity in America to become homeowners. And we've worked really hard to get these houses and to get this education and to invest our monies in these areas. And so for them to come once again to take back what we've worked for and to give tax deductions to a place like New Trier, where their kids are in private school and they own yachts because they live next to a lake. It's time for us to stand up. It's time for us to fight. And it's time for us to change the course of history, because if we continue in the way in which we're going, we're going to be back where we were.
Thank you so much. All right. We have Mr. Obi Wardlaw.
Obi Wardlaw.
I said Wardlaw.
Oh, okay. And the Obi stands for king, in case you wanted to know where it comes from. I am very impressed with with Representative Flowers. And I told her so at one of her meetings. Oh, I'm sorry. Which?
Oh, yeah. Over there, okay.
I can't walk around on TV.
Watch on TV.
King.
Right on. Okay.
Say it again about it.
Okay. I am very impressed with Representative Flowers. I took, in her office, I think I took about 15 pictures because she had a lot of representation of black people.
That's right.
I am also tried to get Representative Ford to run for mayor, and I told him I would support him all the time. She mentioned something about double living. I am a Westsider, for real. To give you an example why I say that. What happened before they had the expressway, I lived on Congress and Halsted. Before they had the University of Illinois, I lived on Paulina and Roosevelt. I've always watched I guess it's okay to say that, I watched the other races, maybe I'll say that without identifying any particular race. I watched them move, then we follow them, they redline us, then we follow them to the next move. LaShawn Ford helped me with my business. I had a business on the west side for 30 years, actually longer than that. 74, I was on Central Park and Ogden with a liquor store. I had a medical equipment and supply company on Roosevelt and Holman. The trees that you saw on Roosevelt, that you see on Roosevelt and Roosevelt, and also the benches that were there was due to the fact that I was an activist, which is why they're asking you all to become activists. Because in order to change things, you got to become involved. I lived in an apartment where we shared 2 families in one house. What you're talking about, they're trying to take us back to now. So I'm a recipient of that. I remember when they wouldn't sell black people houses. So I'm probably the oldest one in the room. And to tell you how old I am, I'm 83 years old. So I have some experiences with redlining on Roosevelt and Homer, where I had my business, and I had the tallest building on Roosevelt and Homer other than downtown. And the value, the banks would not loan me any money. But I was part of an organization called Midwest Community Council, those of us who remember that, and I helped close down construction sites, and I also had helped get Roosevelt Road paved because of my relationship with them. And we also had a fight with Jesse Jackson, so I was... My slogan is follow the money from A to Z, so I'm going to just throw 2 quick points out there. The Dan Ryan, some of the entrances and exits were closed so that they would not, so people who were coming from out of the city would shoot straight downtown, either to the ballpark or to other people out of our neighborhood. So the businesses in our neighborhood closed because the resources left. We got to pay attention. He gave you some numbers in terms of all those different plans. We got to pay attention to what's going on, and because of Representative Flowers and LaShawn Ford, they're definitely in tune with what's happening. So you and I got to make sure that, like this young lady was saying, that we become advocate and stay involved. So I got a long history, so I'm not going to give it to you, but just recognize following the money from A to Z is why we've lost all the things that we've lost in this neighborhood. Lastly, I had one politician tell me I helped make a millionaire on Ogden and Ogden, before you get to Pulaski. You all know those big complexes over there. When I got through talking about her, she stopped talking to me, because that same organization, since I sold medical equipment and supplies, would not buy my products so that I could hire my people. And I'm saying that if we, as this young lady mentioned economics, if black people are not able to hire at least 30 employees and do at least $5 million a year, then you and I have got a lot of work to do in terms of bringing back our houses in our community, because if you ain't making no money, you can't take care of these houses no way.
Thank you. So now we're going to go on to new business. Yeah, we're gonna go back to, she has to leave though, I'm sorry. You needed to come, you have to go to another event? Okay, so you want to test these are the testimonies, then we're gonna go back to the table. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Right, we're public comments, but we're gonna bring you. You're welcome.
Hi everyone, God bless you all. My name is Justina Winfrey. I'm from the Westside of Chicago, a proud resident of the 28th Ward. My family has been in the ward for over 60 years, legacy residents. Just to address Professor LaShonda Graves, off the top of my head, we haven't had an active housing committee in the state legislature since about 2012. Correct me if I'm wrong. In about 2012, it was decommissioned.
Excuse me, I was the chairman of the real estate committee.
Okay.
So, but it was prior to 2012.
Yes. So as of 2012, if we Google State of Illinois Housing Committee, we'll see that it was decommissioned in 2012. In 2013, off the top of my head, I believe they created the Economic Development and Housing Committee, and that was decommissioned in 2015. As of right now, I'm not aware that we actually have an active housing committee per se in the state legislature, and this is something that Rep. Ford, who is my honorable state rep in the 8th Legislative District, I brought this to his attention, and we are basically at the point where we need the community to ask our state legislators, who are thankfully here right now, why don't we have a housing committee in this great state of Illinois?
I'm glad you asked that question because one of our members was over the housing committee. But it wasn't the housing, it was the problems with the housing that we had. And so as a result, you could build it, but you couldn't keep it. Yes. And so therefore, that's the reason why they've been dismantled and decommissioned. So right now, what we need to do is to fix the long-term problem as well as the short-term. The short-term is that there's discrimination going on. The short-term is that there's violations of the law. Now, once we get rid of the problems that's impacting because of the inequities that our communities have endeavored, the housing should be there. And when I say it should be there, what I mean by that, we are entitled, the housing in our community and the funding, those are things that we are entitled to. But I don't want to deal with housings now because I know it'll be gone. I won't be able to leave my granddaughter anything. You won't be able to leave your child anything because they will continue to artificially inflate the taxes. We have been subsidizing wealthy people for years. And I don't know about you, but I've been telling them for a long time, get off my back. And so therefore, it's not the housing problem. The houses is out there. But can we afford it? No, we can't, because when we tried to get loans, we couldn't because of redlining, because of the insurance, because of the drugs and the other things that was placed in our community. So there was bad policies because of what was going on in our community. But I promise you, with this law, we're going to bring back our community. But we have to be able to hold on to what we got.
Thank you, Rep. Flowers. Just to respond to that, the reason why we need a housing committee at the state level is so that we have oversight. This law is absolutely necessary, but in many of these states throughout the nation, they have housing committees, and there is no excuse as to why we should not have a housing committee in the state legislature, with all due respect. Cook County needs a land records audit. We must audit the land records in Cook County. What does that mean? That means that neighbors on the 4800 block of West Quincy, for several years, you brought up one of I believe the gentleman here brought up a resident covenant, that black people weren't able to purchase properties until the 1950s in the city of Chicago when the resident covenant was lifted, okay? So my grandparents purchased property on the west side of Chicago because they were too dark and had a large family to purchase on the south side, because at that time they weren't renting to large families. I'll be brief. When they purchased the properties, your tax ID number, your PIN number, your parcel index number had a chain in the title that explained who owned that property previously. Currently, our land records are flawed in Cook County, and those land records only go up to about 1987, which is a problem because on the 4800 block of West Quincy, my neighbors, my family, with two other homeowners shared the same tax ID number, which is like Dr. Binion, myself, and Professor here sharing the same social security number. Your tax ID number and your parcel index number is like your social security number. It doesn't change in the county unless you request and petition it through a divisions and consolidations process. You have to petition and pay a fee and have a notarized document. Either the developer should do it, the current property owner, or the person that is going through the process to deal with the loan. The point is, that did not happen with the 40 properties on Jackson and Cicero and on the 4800 block of West Quincy, which ultimately meant that the residents that signed that 5-year resident covenant, after they lived in that property for 5 years, the city of Chicago released that resident covenant, and said, we no longer have anything to do with this property. Each one of those tax ID numbers changed on those homeowners, and their property taxes were sold for not 1, but 2 years, in which they each had to pay back property taxes for 2 previous years under the new tax ID number. I don't know if you all know, by that 3rd year, by law, they can foreclose on your house even if you're paying your mortgage on time every month, but you have someone telling you you haven't been paying your property taxes. But guess what? Your property taxes and your insurance are in escrow. How do you prove if the county changed your tax ID number? If you have whiteout on release deeds, even though these families have release deeds to their properties. But guess how many of them lost their properties as a result of those basic tax ID numbers? And let's be clear, federal dollars came through the pipeline where each of those homeowners were supposed to receive $20,000 to $30,000 subsidies for purchasing those properties. Where is the money? The county deleted those tax ID numbers. Where's the money? We need a Cook County land records audit immediately, and I just want to point you all to 1616208-032 is the very first tax ID number. If you look at the land records at cookrecorder.com, 1616208-050 is one of the tax ID numbers that it was changed to. The initial tax ID number 1616208-032-0000, 3 neighbors shared that property tax ID number. We need a land records audit. Thank you, and God bless you.
Ms. Winfrey, first of all, I want to thank you. Thank you very much. And I agree with you in regards to that housing committee. And because of you, we will have a housing committee.
Thank you.
And I hope that you would work very closely with us, because the only way that we could be successful is to have people like you. And thank you for educating us.
Thank you.
And again, it just goes to show you how much we have to do, how much work we have to do. And again, we have to get our houses, hold on to them, and then protect the deeds and protect the property. And we have to be able to try to do all of that at one time. So I hope you would join us, and I'm sure Representative Ford will be letting you know, so you could be one of the first ones to come and testify. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to have, for public comments, we're going to have Attorney Moore.
Law. Good evening, everyone. There's a lot of good information here, and I've been taking notes, and my paper is really marked up here. But we have, my name is William Moore, I'm an attorney, and we do appreciate Representative Flowers taking the leadership role in the governor's office, really having these hearings throughout the community. One of the things I'm glad is that I was actually at the first hearing out in Madison, and so I took some notes there, and I'm steadily combining notes, and there's a lot here. We heard how Dr. Binion, when she put up her tax bill, and she talked about her $9,000 or $10,000 tax bill that kind of shocked her after she bought her home that was about $98,000, I think. And then we heard about the 856 school districts. We heard from the apartment lady who said that renters are really a part of this, and they don't understand that the taxes are passed on from the owner to the renter. And it's very important. It's interesting that years ago, I've been in public interest law for pretty much all of my legal career. One of the things that, one of the organizations that I worked for was called the Lawyers Committee for Better Housing. And we realized that tenants were being, houses were being foreclosed on, and tenants were living in those houses, and no one knew that the tenants were there. And so you saw back years ago, there was a Hispanic couple that was on the front page of the Chicago Sun-Times. That was my client. And at that time, we really blew the whistle on these owners that were having these unsuspecting, tenants being foreclosed on. So the Cook County Sheriff put a moratorium on evicting tenants, and eventually they kind of got that resolved. But one of the things that I've been working on, I've been in foreclosure defense for about 20 years and fighting on behalf of homeowners. And one of the things that we saw where they were, people go in, when they get into trouble with their mortgage, they try to get a modification. Well, one of the things with the modification is that the property taxes were so high that a lot of these homeowners couldn't get modifications and their houses were foreclosed on. And in some instances, we saw where the property taxes were more than the mortgage payment, which was kind of ridiculous. So one of the things that we propose is to, I think Mr. Graham talked about that he files a property tax appeal every year. So one of the things we're asking is that the legislature stays foreclosures where there's a pending property tax appeal. So we're asking for them to put that legislation in effect. One of the other things that we looked at is, and I was kind of glad that Representative Flowers, when she was up speaking, she mentioned LaToya Greenwood. Well, as I saw this issue, I went to State Representative Petty. There is a law on the books right now. It's called the Abandoned Housing and Rehabilitation Act. And essentially what that act does is, so if you see an abandoned property in your neighborhood, you can actually go and sue that owner and ask the court to give you that house. Right? This is a law right on the book. So citizens can take a stand. If you see an abandoned building, you can actually go after that property. Well, when I looked at the act, one of the problems with the act is that when you see a property that's been sitting in your neighborhood for years, it's probably laden with tax debt because the county never turned off the spigot, right? So here it is, you got this property, you see, I want to take this abandoned building that's next to me, I want to sue the owner who's been absent for so many years, go into court and say, Judge, give me this property, here's my plan to rehabilitate the property. The problem is that the taxes will be a deterrent. And so one of the things we did was went to State Representative Petty, and I said, we need to amend that act. And there is currently an amendment that is sitting in the legislature right now. It's under House Bill 28. It was previously under House Bill 5965. And because it didn't go anywhere, when the new year turned over, they put it as House Bill 28. And right now, when I looked that bill up, it's actually sitting in the Rules Committee. It's been referred to Rules. It was referred there on 329. It's been sitting there. So we're asking the state legislature to pass House Bill 28. It allows nonprofit organizations to go in and ask the court to waive those back taxes off of that property. So one of the things that I heard you say, it's not about the one, but it's about all. So the citizens can stand up, go after a piece of property. The legislator can pass House Bill 28. They can do that right now. And the city, because one of the other problems that exists is that the city, sometimes they put liens on these properties. So if you go up to 400 West Superior, you go in the housing court, they slap a lien on the building, and then somebody gets ready to buy the building to rehab it. They say, sorry, you can't rehab that building until you pay the lien. Well, the city needs to stand up and do its part and give some amnesty to allow people to take these properties back. This is not about the one, but it's about all. Yes. So let's see. One of the other things, and I'm going to take give up the mic in just a minute. One of the things I want to say about, everybody knows about 400 West Superior, right? 400 West Superior is that place where you go in if you got issues with your house and the city puts fines on your house and there's a judgment or whatever. It's way up on 400 West Superior. Right. There's another place out at 95th Street where they have administrative hearings on 95th Street, but you can't have a housing hearing at 95th Street. So why don't they bring from 400 West Superior, again, these services are up north, put these services in the community where you can have people not have to drive up north to get relief. Finally, I'm going to say this, is that we believe that there should be a program to make amends for the injustice that has been done. There was a mention that we were subsidizing the northern suburbs. So there needs to be programs to help poor communities. One of the programs that they had at the state level, it was called the Hardest Hit Fund. They were helping people pay their mortgages. But something happened where they took that program away, and now it doesn't exist. But it was really helping people to stay in their homes. The Hardest Hit program, bring that program to the hardest hit neighborhoods that have been unjustly taken advantage of in terms of these taxes. Bring the Hardest Hit program back. The other thing is, Cook County has interest. So when you don't pay your taxes, they pile on so much interest that now you're paying sometimes 3 and 4 times. They need to get rid of that interest. If you want to make amends to the people, get rid of the interest where you've been unfairly taxing these people. You can do that. You're still going to get the taxes, but get rid of the interest. And so that's all I wanted to say. There's so much more here, but those are some good
And
things
there's
that
a
we
question.
can do. Yes.
State Rep. LaShawn Ford would like to ask a question.
I just thank you, Attorney, and thank you, Pastor Binion. Pending appeals, why hold it up if you are in foreclosure and you appeal your taxes? Why would that be a good law?
It would be a good law because the property taxes are weighing in. They're bringing homeowners into foreclosure.
But
so
the reason why I ask, because most of the times there are 2 ways to lose your property. You're going to lose your property for failure to pay your taxes and failure to pay your mortgage. If you're late on your mortgage and you're about to default on your mortgage, how does appealing your taxes, why would holding up the foreclosure for taxes benefit?
Because if you win the appeal and the taxes get reduced, then the mortgage payment would be reduced. And so it would help a homeowner stay in their home and make the mortgage more affordable.
So that's good. So I'm not debating. I'm trying to get a good argument. So one of the things that we're saying is one of the reasons why the homeowner may have been late or delinquent is because they couldn't afford the taxes. And if we were able to make sure that they had a fair property tax assessment, they probably wouldn't be losing their home.
Right.
Correct.
That's a good idea.
Correct.
I had to learn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See, thank you all very much, and thank you, Representative Ford, again, because that is the purpose of these hearings. And again, let me just reiterate what the task force is. This task force is created to utilize a racial and economic equity lens to identify the causes of increasingly burdensome property taxes across Illinois and review best practices and look at the policies. And I'm just going to surmise that the purpose of all of this is to find out what it is that's going on. And the gentleman is right. We have to be able to lower the taxes. And those taxes should be lowered because under 4 studies and investigations that has been done, it has been proven that our community has been disenfranchised in regards to how we were charged for our taxes. We were subsidizing other people's taxes. So you are right, there should be certain programs out there like it used to be, but before we put those programs back, we have to fix what's broken, because we don't want to put those programs back on top of this weak foundation, because it's only going to fall down again, and that we don't never want to happen.
Okay, I would, if you all don't mind, I'd like to speak to State Rep. Ford in response to his question to Mr. Moore. State Rep. Ford, typically when you have a mortgage, the taxes are rolled into the mortgage into something called escrow. When those taxes are assessed every year, they send that information not only to yourself but also to the mortgage company. The mortgage company then increases your mortgage accordingly So let's say, for an example, you have a $1,000 mortgage, and then they go and they reassess. And for example, in my case, just as an example, it would go from $1,000 to $2,000. How many people can pay, how many people in this room, if next week your rent or mortgage doubled, could actually pay it? Right? Because your income did not increase. So, Attorney Moore, I really thank you for that suggestion, because had that been in place when they assessed my house, I wouldn't have had to sell it or lose it.
I got to tell you, that is huge.
Yes.
Because what divides people are property taxes. And when property taxes go up, when the escrows go up with the property taxes, we really should know if that's when people start going into default. That's a big deal.
It probably sounds negative. But what it is, I got some friends that had that same issue, but they didn't have enough money even when they modified it. So we got to bring resources into our community to make sure that that takes place, because under the circumstance that you want them to change, other races will benefit more than we will because we're not bringing in enough capital.
Okay. And again, I just want to say that I'm going back to the Chicago Tribune, and it talked about, once again, how our low-price homes were overvalued and the wealthier homes were devalued.
Right.
That is a major problem. But then the next line goes on to say, and this goes to the Department of Housing, because there's a federal Department of Housing. As a result, the lawsuit argues that the county violated the Illinois Civil Rights Act, the Equal Protection Clause of the state and the federal Constitution, and the Federal Fair Housing Act. So these laws and the Constitution is being violated, and we have a right to be made whole. And so that's the reason why these hearings are very important. That's the reason why your time and your testimony and your sacrifices are very important.
So I just have to say, this is really great, because I have to remind you that when Leader Flowers spoke at the full body property tax hearing when we started it, so Leader Flowers knows all about healthcare, education, everything, because she's been there, she's seen it. She knows about property taxes too. But this was something new that was about to take off. And it was about to go somewhere that only certain people wanted it to go. And it was just amazing. And she was sitting there and she was like, I was looking at her, she was like, this ain't getting ready to happen. I said, but you know, Leader Flowers, he started the bill. He wrote the bill. She said, I don't care. Right. There is a problem with the social and economic disparities, and we have to have it. And I know that we can get the community to come out and stand for themselves, and we will stand with them. That's why we're here. It's unbelievable. Yeah. I'm telling you, attorney, and all of you here, it is unbelievable what I've learned tonight and what the governor is going to learn as a result of Leader Flowers saying, let's bring it to the people and give them a voice. This is amazing. I never thought, and I've been doing real estate for a long time, but I never ever thought what you said, attorney, about how many people may have lost their houses because of the property taxes and being overvalued in their communities, and had they had a fair valuation of their property taxes, they would have been able to afford the mortgage. And so how many people do we need to review that lost their properties because they were overvalued in their property taxes? It's amazing.
And let me say this real quick. I have experienced every one of these incidents. And if I wasn't financially stable, you're talking about when they're increasing your extra another $300 a month, and then they're increasing your property taxes another $300 a month, and then to top it off, when I refinanced, they forgot to include the taxes into my refinance, and they hit me for $10,000 to pay up front. And I said, how, and this is within the same mortgage company. So you're talking, they said $10,000. And I went all the way to the top of the company, and the only way that I was able to get it adjusted, because I told them I was president of the NAACP. And they said, hold on, we'll be right with you. And they gave me $5,000 off of my mortgage, off the tax that I owe, because I owe the taxes, and they would not put it. I said, well, just put it back into the loop of things, you know. They refused. But when I told them that, they gave me $5,000 back. And then they said, well, Mr. Graham, it's $250, okay? I said, well, yeah, you can give me $5,000. No, but I'm just saying, this is, the average person couldn't go through that. And it's devastating when you like you say, the value of your property going down at that point, and then so you have to justify the bank how you able to refinance, or you done took an equity line of credit out, and your property value at one point was $300, now it's $180,000, so you can't get nothing off, and you in a hole. Right. And the only thing you can do is walk away. But I refuse, and me and my wife refused to go in the hole to go to AC Green. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what we did. We said, well, y'all got to go broke then. Well, we said, well, that ain't going to happen. You know what I'm saying? And that's what you have to do. Thank you.
I know. But I just want to say, but you have to remember, they never did really owe that much in the first place. So people that did walk away, they walked away from their dream.
Yes. Right.
Everything that they ever wanted. And it was all based on a lie. That's right. It was based on racism.
Yes.
Enough.
And so now we're going to move forward. Thank you, State Rep Flowers. And I just wanted to add to that, when I bought my home, they increased it over $30,000 to the value of my home. And all I did was buy it. And it's a 1.5 car garage. And there's not even central air upstairs. Thank you.
All right. This is good conversation. I'm Phyllis Logan, assisting many of the research and whatnot that we're doing. I, too, have been in the real estate industry for over 25 years, but the past, since 2005, myself and a few of our colleagues did loan modifications. When we had to turn off that hat as real estate brokers, we switched over to loan modification service providers. Many of the communities were lost due to those taxes. The bulk of the families out in Maywood, Bellwood, Broadview lost their homes because of the increase in the taxes. That had nothing to do with the modification, because they could afford the loan. It was the tax increase that we've been fighting for, that we've been trying to get a moratorium on, especially with our seniors. Now you've got a senior who has senior freeze. Taxes are $100. Within the next year, because of the reassessments of the property, it goes up to $1,000. And like it was stated earlier, the income doesn't change. Those are our legacies that lost their homes. So if there's any way that we can go back and do research, pull all of those homeowners out of a pile who lost their homes due to taxes and give them restitution, that's something I'm willing to fight for, even right here on the west side as well as the south side. And I was talking to the young man from the far south, even in Park Forest, in Dalton, and South Holland, doesn't matter. All of those families, we worked on modifications, and they lost those homes due to the property tax. We couldn't get the taxes low enough. But without the taxes, they could afford their home. So I'm looking for a pipeline to do the research to fit all of those homeowners in that lost their homes because of property taxes, foreclosed because of property taxes. That would be a great assistance, I think, to many of our communities.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to let everyone know that during testimonies, go to State Representative Mary Flowers' Facebook page, and I open microphone.
Speak in the mic.
I want to remind you I want to remind everyone, go to State Representative Mary Flowers' Facebook page. We've opened up the messages so that you can submit your testimony via Facebook. We want those testimonies, and I'm filming, so I'll know who you are, and I remember what meeting you went to. But if you want to say what meeting you went to, that would be, what hearing you went to, that would be good.
Yeah.
For those who are watching online, those who are watching on the television, go to State Representative Mary Flowers' Facebook page. The messages, you can leave a direct message on State Representative Mary Flowers' Facebook page so that you can give your testimony. You have to understand how important the testimonies are. The testimonies, your witness list or the witness testimonies, that's our records, that's our evidence. So it's gonna go into the records for this hearing, so you can go online and do it as well. Thank you, guys.
Good evening. My name is Willie Mack. Can everybody hear me? And like the attorney, I wrote down some notes also. This situation is complex. It's like a motor vehicle, has many, many moving parts. So, if we're talking about fixing the tires, that's one thing. You're talking about putting oil in, and you're talking about gasoline and whatnot. And sometimes we all don't agree. That's going to happen in a situation like this. But on those issues where we can agree, then we go forward. Now I'm going to rush on to my 5 points if I can. First of all, I may be one of the only persons in here who has been on both sides of the issue. When I say that, I'm referring to what the tax doctor said, Anthony Travis. And think about a river. You go down and you try to wash your clothes or whatever it is, and you find that it's all polluted and whatnot. Okay, so you're upset about that. You want to straighten it out. But why not go to the source? Because all you're going to do is just keep cleaning up. Somebody is polluting it at the source. Now, I was a school superintendent for over 10 years in 3 different districts. And one of my jobs was to create the levee. That is the source. The tax doctor already mentioned that there are several governmental agencies. Now, the way I did it, I would try to figure out how much we needed for the services and so forth and so on. And basically, my board would approve it. That's how it went. Now, if I had been a corrupt or a crook or anything like that, you can imagine the havoc I would have caused on those 3 districts. Let me share with you, there are no checks and balances on this process. Let me say it again. There are no checks and balances on this process at the source. Right now, no checks and balances. Number 2, I want, as a note, of course we could go on and on, but just want to give you a brief. I know something's crooked about this appeal process because I had tried it the so-called official way, got nowhere. And yet I received maybe 20 different letters from various attorneys saying, we will reduce your property taxes if you do such and such. So finally, and by the way, I'm paying about $18,000 because I live in Oak Park. Yeah, right, it kills me. A lot of vacations I've never had and never will have. Never. The attorney got a reduction on my taxes, but took 50% of it. Now, how is it that the attorney could get my taxes down and yet no one else could? So that smells, right? Okay, that's a place to look.
That's the process.
Committee. Now, I had no intent of saying anything when I came in here. But someone asked me, and then when I saw State Rep Mary Flowers, was head of this, and I met her back in the 80s, and I know she was a straight shooter. Because when I first came in here, I've been down this road before. This is going nowhere. Same old. You're absolutely correct. But I have faith, and I'm sure a lot of others who know you have faith. We're putting our faith in you. That's why I'm standing here talking. Number 4, this is comprehensive. We talk about taxes and whatnot, but don't just talk about taxes. You got to have taxes and services. Taxes and services. When someone says, I want to do this and that with the taxes, okay, what services are you going to provide? Ask them. And this is a good time. It's political season, right? And when someone talks to you about services, promises, ask them, how are you going to pay for it? It's like if you say 2 and 3, okay, 2 and 3. What about the 5? You got to have the equation. You got to have both sides of the issue every time we speak. Every time. Unfortunately, this is cynical. This is pessimistic on my part, so I hope I'm wrong. And I'll give an example. Remember Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois? Many of you remember. He went to Philadelphia. He did that interview, 5,000 people, trying to educate them about our plight. And he came to the realization that many of us have come to. They already know. Everything we say here, I'm listening, I'm learning, but they already know this. They don't care. They don't care. When I used to work in city schools, Chicago public schools, they took out the art teacher, they took out the music teacher, they took out the guidance counselor. I remember those. I didn't read it out of a book. I experienced that. They don't care. So I'm not going to belabor it. All the things that were said here are great. And please give us the encouragement to keep on stepping up. And we are with you, the entire panel. Thank you.
Sure. Name is Alex Lyons, lifetime Westsider. Call myself the Westside Avenger because oftentimes I go places and when I see I'm from the West Side, people tend to frown. You stay in Garfield Park. I'm like, yeah, and I've learned a lot tonight. A lot of good facts. I've learned a lot about the housing committees and maybe being a long-time housing investor, real estate investor, I'm not going to look at this from a housing perspective per se. I'm not going to look at it from a business perspective. I know people are listening on online, the governor's office and so forth. That's great. But at the end of the day, I've been on different task forces, things local, things for the state. And it amazes me how when you think you got something going, and maybe it's going to sound a little cynical, a little sarcastic, and I mean no disrespect to anyone at this table. But how many times have people told me, well, the Speaker Madigan wouldn't let us bring this to a vote. He wouldn't let us do this. How is Madigan's interaction going to affect this process? Because it seems as though when we get the wheels running or rolling, there's always the issue of what Madigan wants. And how are we going to, how are the people at this table, the other state reps, how are you going to deal with that? Because it's going to be an issue, at least I think it will be at some point in time. If you're going to change the actual monster, and you got a guy who's probably, from what I've seen, one of the most powerful state reps in the doggone country. It's just hard for me to see someone like that just letting us waltz on in and make all these sweeping changes to effect to help black folks and not say a doggone thing about it. Please answer that question for me.
I'm glad you asked that question. I just want to say that it's really been my pleasure to serve in the Illinois House of Representatives for the last 35 years. And I've worked with the Speaker for the last 35 years. And the Speaker made appointments to this committee. The Speaker made appointments to this committee. The Speaker knew the seriousness of the appointments that he was making to this committee when he chose me. I didn't get on this committee, sir, to go along, to get along with anyone. Now, if the Speaker wanted to stop this, he could have done it before it got to the governor's desk. But the governor signed it. It's law. It's the law. It's something that we have to comply with. Now, you can sit back and talk about what you read and whatever, but the Speaker is one person, and it takes all of us to work together. Now, if we are okay with the way things are and want to find somebody to be the boogeyman or complain about, do that. But I have my grandbaby out here, and I just buried my husband. I'm not here to play with anybody. So I'm just letting you know, sir, that the reason why I'm out here tonight with my sister and my granddaughter, and it hasn't been 2 weeks since I buried my husband, I didn't come out here to play. And I'm still not in office to be played with by anyone. I'm here because of the people of the state of Illinois. Yes, I get voted in by the people of the 31st District, but I have the blessings of the people from the state of Illinois. And this has to be done. It's time out, and it's really time for a change. And thank you very much. And I look forward to working with you.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
I want to speak to that issue, and I'm not a homeowner. I have never owned a home, but I'm a damn good organizer. And we have failed our children by not holding elected officials accountable. We failed the elected officials by not holding them accountable, by not having fundraisers, buying the tickets, and supporting them like other lobbyist people do when they knock on their door. When I'm in Springfield, chasing them around in their ear all the time. They don't never let them breathe. We got to organize. Lyndon Johnson told A. Philip Randolph, the first black labor union, that if you want me to do it, make me do it. He put the march on Washington. You got to make elected officials do it. We got time to play with Madigan and nobody. We're the only people that won't die for our children. And children will turn against you when you don't protect them. So they should be turning against us. We don't own one black grocery store. We got one black gas station. We lost all 5 black banks. 150 schools closed. Black history since 1991 has been mandated by law. She threatened us, we should sue them. Black history is not being taught in schools. The LGBTQ community is just passed in less than a year. The Berg story is being told. We don't love black children. And this is not against the Latinos. They went to Springfield and asked for $100 million. They gave them 98, hired all Latino contractors with your money, 13 new charter schools from the ground up, solar industry, and child care, soccer fields. And y'all want to take your babies to a dollar school with asbestos that look like a prison. We hate black children. Nobody would ever do that to their babies. Our children deserve best. So Madigan and anybody, if we're not going to organize, and I want to say this, Dr. Benyon and myself and others, we hit this Westside for this room to be packed. This ain't short on her.
We did.
I went to Malcolm Crawford meeting and passed out 60 flyers and told him what's going on. She had the pastors line meeting and told him what's going on. I talked to Isaac. I gave her 300 copies. This man's going to be black. Do you love your children?
Okay, and if you could briefly, Austin Chambers, real quick, and then we're going to adjourn.
Hi, I would just like to say I also learned a lot. I didn't know a lot about the property taxes. As the brother said, I don't own a home. I am a renter, so what the landlord lady said was very important to me. And I've lived where I've lived for over 6 years, and my rent is constantly going up. And I know now that it's because of the tax properties. Whatever happens to the landlord happens to the renter.
That's right.
And so, with that being said, I wanted to say that Austin Chamber of Commerce is working very closely with Austin coming together with their quality of life plan. And so we have plans with helping out whatever way we can.
And what we need you to do is work with the Westside Ministers Coalition.
Absolutely.
Because we're the ones here trying to push this.
Absolutely.
Amen. And they should have been in the room. If they have a plan and we ask them, then they should have been in this room partnering to really make a difference.
That's right.
Thank you. State Rep Flowers.
I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. And I want to say that it's all in your hands. Come this upcoming election, there's going to be a question on the ballot. Do you want a fair tax? Now, right now, we're under a flat tax, and that's a regressive tax. That's not what we want. We want a fair tax. So in order to get a fair tax, in order for things to be fair and equitable, I don't know if it's ever going to be fair, quite frankly, but we're going to work toward that goal. It's going to be said that we tried. But what we really have to do is get involved. And like Reva said, do we love our children? That's the question that needs to be asked and answered. What about our grandparents who fought and had homes, had businesses, had stores and properties, and it was just all taken away?
We got to close.
So anyway, thank you all very much, and I appreciate you. And
Thank you. Thank you. And so now the meeting is officially adjourned.